Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Anyhow, Anyway by Summer England. I'm your podcast host, Summer England, and we talk about all things bookish, cozy, chaotic, writing, and the chaos in between. And today, we're going to be discussing writing routines. You know, within the first 20 seconds of a podcast, a spoken form, I love to completely mess up my words. It's one of my favorite things to do, actually. I'm so glad you asked. Anyhow, writing routines. We're going to be talking about first drafts and specifically my experience with writing the current rom-com that I've been writing, that I feel like I've been writing for literally 2 years. And I have written so many different drafts of this book. And I think it's good to chat that sometimes you have to write a lot of drafts of things and spend more time with characters. And yeah, we're going to talk about it today. Also, I'm going to do some general updates because I know so many of you are neurospicy and have questions about ADHD and ADHD medication and how it's been affecting the writing. So I'll be kind of infiltrating that all into one episode today. So I've been on Vyvanse for 18 days, and in those 18 days, I have begun my final rewrite of my second draft that is due to my agent August 15th, okay? This is a self-imposed deadline of sorts. I technically wanted it to be in its complete draft form August 1st, and then that would allow me 2 weeks to edit. But I got to a certain point in the drafting process, and also then I went on vacation to New York, and then I began medication, and I had a week where I was very wobbly on my writing routine because there was so much I was getting used to and coming back from vacation. And also, because I started ADHD medication, my brain and how the writing was working changed for the better, let me just say. Major for the better, especially for this novel in particular. And basically what was happening before was I have been writing this novel for, I think, 2-ish years. I believe I began the initial conceptions of this novel at the end of 2024, in the holiday season of 2024. It was also while I was writing my second book, which was a sequel that I don't think will ever see the light of day to The Impossible Garden of Clara Thorne. If you haven't got that book, it's out in the shelves and such. Go get you a copy, why don't you? Anyhow, I was working on a sequel to that because at the time with my publisher, which this is just kind of a little bit into like publisher timelines and publisher ideas and et cetera, I got a 2-book deal when I first sold Impossible Garden of Clara Thorne. And based on the language of that 2-book deal and kind of the initial conversations of asking, is there a sequel, what have you, I assumed that that second book had to be a sequel to The Impossible Garden of Clara Thorne. So when I began drafting that second book, I just assumed it was going to have to be a sequel, even though I kind of didn't want to write a sequel to The Impossible Garden of Clara Thorne, so it ended up working out. Mostly because I really do like standalone fantasy novels, or fantasy novels where we follow different couples or different people in the universe, but I wasn't really thinking that The Impossible Garden of Clara Thorne was going to be sort of like Tomes and Tea by Rebecca Thorne, where we follow Kianth and Raina as an established couple through 4 books. I didn't really have that envisioned. It might happen, I'm not sure. However, at the time in 2024, I was under the impression that I needed to write a sequel for this book. And so that's what I did. And also I had an idea about these 2 Shakespeare professors vying for the same tenure track position. And I wanted to start writing a rom-com. And I wanted to specifically write a rom-com where our main character was autistic, because I wanted more autistic representation in a modern rom-com, and the autism wasn't the obstacle to the love story. Like, she is autistic. We know that she's autistic. She knows she's autistic. It's not super the biggest issue in her life. And I think as an autistic person, sometimes, a lot of times actually, when I have read autistic representation where it is stated to us this person is autistic, not lightly neurospicy. I think there are plenty of books. I'm thinking of a lot of Ali Hazelwood books, for example, wherein it is obvious that the main character is neurospicy. I am talking about when the characters are autistic, where they say, I'm autistic. Do you know what I mean? Like we know that. And I have just read a few of those where that is explicit, and it's also the main obstacle to the love. Like they don't want to share that they are, etc. And that's fine. I think that there's totally a place for that, and absolutely understandable, because I, as a obviously autistic ADHD person, have definitely had issues with my relationships that stem from my disability and my mental illness. However, on the autism side of things, I think that I just wanted to explore a story where that wasn't the main thing, where it was that, like, obviously, yeah, sure she is, but that's not going to be the reason of the issues between these two people or the tension of the plot. It's going to be a thing that she has to experience. Anyhow, I got that idea in 2024, right? So then in 2025, I had a big goal of I want to finish this book. So there was no reason for me not to be able to. I want to add that in there. And I think that was one of my, hiccups with writing this book, and also where writing this book really helped me realize how bad my ADHD was, to the point where I could no longer ignore it. Because when I was writing Impossible Garden of Clara Thorne, I did so in a very short amount of time. I did so, I would wake up at 6 a.m. and write until 12 p.m. And then I would work multiple other jobs. And the neighbor moved in at the same time. So that was new stimulus. And my kid was really young. And so there was way more stressors on me than there was going to be in 2025. And so I was basing my experience on drafting this novel on how successful I was, successful in relative terms of how efficient and it got finished I was on my debut novel. Caveat, I do think with debut novels, there is some mercurial thing that's happening for that book, in that book has always been in you. I just think that. I think the first book that you finish, your debut, the stories have been so far into your bones, and so much of your life has accumulated up to that moment, that it's not that it's beginner's luck, but for me, at least, it was almost like a pressure valve release. And because I already had an agent, and because I had a deadline also with this one, it was kind of all of those things working in my favor, because I'm ADHD, I work so much more efficiently when there is a really strict deadline. And so I was really able to get that book in a very workable form. And even through edits, I would say, yes, there was lots that changed, but the essence of it was really still the same. And I still recognize the first draft and then the final that we have sent out to the public, because that story was inside of me and it was born so organically, and I just needed to, I was sort of the vehicle, and it felt like the story was taking me along with it. And then we jumped forward to 2025. And I have this big dream, right? I'm going to do these two Shakespeare professors vying for the same tenure track position. And what I want to do, and what I still plan to do, and I am very excited to do it, is to a la how Ali Hazelwood writes in science and STEM and all of that. I want to do that with Shakespeare, because I literally am a Shakespeare scholar. So I might as well do it. I have 2 master's degrees in it. I have a terminal degree in it. I have taught at all of the levels, blah, blah, blah. I work to this day. I have been working for half a decade, 5 full years, as a professional classical actress at a famous Shakespeare theater at the American Shakespeare Center. And I feel uniquely set up to be able to do this. So when I went into drafting this novel, I was like, okay, I literally have no reason for this first draft not to be worlds better even than The Impossible Garden, because I was in between contracts. So I had like 6 months off of work. 6 months. I owned a house. My kiddo was a little bit older, and so there wasn't as many direct, constant stimulus of I would say the highest needs age for my kiddo, at least, was like the ages of 3 to 4 was a lot, and in the best way, and also in a lot of ways. He was older. He was going to be in school. He was going to be in camp. It was the summertime. I had so much free time, and also I felt like I have the skill set to write this book. Impossible Garden was a debut in every way. I had never written in fantasy before. I hadn't written a book before. Now I had written a book. I'd also written the sequel to that book, even though, again, might not ever get published, but I still had practiced and done that skill set of writing a book. And so when I got to the summer of 2025, I said, okay, this is going to be easy. I'm going to pop this buddy out. I'm going to finish this draft so quick because I get my word count in. I can hit a word count so easy. I have a tendency, if anything, to overwrite. Let's do this. And I couldn't do it. There was something that just wasn't happening like there was for The Impossible Garden of Clara Thorne. I was getting places, and I have my writing group that we were meeting bi-weekly, and I would submit these pages, and they really loved the opening chapter, and they liked all this other stuff, and they liked the bird's eye view of being in somebody of an autistic grown woman, a grown successful woman's brain. They liked that. And so I was getting all of this encouragement, and still I couldn't finish the thing. It was like something was always getting in the way. I felt so not creative. And because I went into this assuming this is going to be way easier than Impossible Garden was, because I have the stuff. I am literally a Shakespearean. That's what I do and have done every day of my life. I should be able to do this. I should be able to write a rom-com. And another assumption I had was because this wasn't a fantasy world, I was going to have a way easier time of it. And none of that proved to be true. It's actually kind of very similar to, so when we do talkbacks, meaning we come out after, the end of a show, and somebody asks, for example, I'm playing Rosalind right now in As You Like It, and somebody asks after the show, is it super hard to memorize Old English versus more modern scripts? And the first thing I say is, this is not Old English. This is English. Old English is another language entirely. That's it. You literally can't understand it. You have to speak that language. The 90% of the words are words that we use today. And on top of that, the syntax of it is heightened, but they're all understandable. The reason why people aren't understanding it is either one, and most likely they have been told that they cannot, or two, you are meant to hear it. Yes, I think when you are more advanced in your Shakespeare career, you can probably read it. However, it is meant to be seen. And so I, as the actor, it is up to me to be able to communicate to you what the story is, because I understand it so deeply, and I am able to take what you assume is ancient language and make it feel very modern. It's the biggest compliment I can ever get as an actor, is when people come up to me and say, I had no idea I was going to be able to understand Shakespeare, and I did it, and I didn't even have any issue with it. It felt like, one person told me, it felt like you're doing Gilmore Girls Shakespeare. Like I could just listen to it. And that is one, a huge compliment, but two, there's something in the language of Shakespeare for me as a practitioner that I am so much more able to latch onto, a rhythm, a structure, a beginning, middle, and end. There's such a craft to it that I am able to latch onto it way easier than, for example, I'm also in Our Town by Thornton Wilder, and nothing is more annoying to memorize than us. Please, if you are a playwright listening to this right now, quit writing us in your script. It's embarrassing. We are playmakers. Stop it. We say uhs when we don't know what to say. And famously, in this, we know what to say. Oh, it kills me. All of that to say is that similar to how people make the assumption that it's going to be harder to memorize Shakespeare than it is to memorize something modern, I made the mistake of, it's going to be easier for me to write a modern day novel because it's not a fantasy novel. Actually, it wasn't at all. And there are multiple reasons for that. One, fantasy novels, for the way that my brain works and the way that I am as a person, suit my brain's constant need to change a beat or to have something happen or plot things or world building, etc., etc. There's so much to delve into and explore, and that keeps my brain, weirdly, because there's so many plates in the air, more on track. Whereas with something more modern, where I don't have to explain to you how a magic system works, I don't have to explain to you different races and creeds and languages and places on maps, that actually, there's more real estate on the page for conversation. And there was also like, I cut my teeth on writing with an adventure novel. We had a journey, like there was a set situation going on, and I'm a writer who I do not enjoy outlining. I think now actually that I am on ADHD medications, I could see myself having a little bit more success with outlining because lists don't inherently make me shut down, because before outlining I felt very anti-creative and it just made me shut down, and I could only think, well, I've got to just check this box off instead of discovering it. Whereas now it feels a little bit different. However, with a fantasy novel, it's a little bit easier to be a pantser or a discovery writer, as some people like to call it, because there is a beginning, middle, and end. We're leaving home. We're going on a journey. We're having issues along that journey. We get to our destination. There's a thing to do at the destination. Bad guy comes, the story ends. You know what I mean? That's kind of even the most amazing, classic, just, J.R.R. Tolkien, that's what happens. You're not going to think outside of the box there. Whereas with a rom-com, it's not like that. Obviously, there is the adventure because there is the people falling in love, but that's really not a lot of juice in regards to writing, And so when I was doing this in 2025, my tendency to do too much, which is I always am biting off more than I can chew. Always and forever, I am biting off more than I can chew. I have never, ever in my life learned that lesson. I see so many possibilities and I have to do them all. And every time I get to a situation where I can feel myself being like, Summer, why do you have 7 activities in the day? There's that little side of me, which I think is just me. I actually don't think it's my ADHD. I do think that is just me. It's still very much here. And then the other side of me is like, yeah, but you know what? I'm better this time around. I'll be able to finish it. I will be able to win the self-imposed competition I have set for myself. I promise. I used to do that with my syllabi. I used to do that. Oh my God, my first English comp class that I ever taught, that class, God love those students. I mean, they were great. We made a lot of progress. I'm still proud of it. It was madness. The sheer scaled amount of reading, research, and we did it. And I made sure that we did it. But then I left it and I was like, that was honestly more work on me, because I take writing samples so seriously that I spent hours because of the work, even though I could have done this in a more simpler way. So I was doing that initially with this plot, with these 2 Shakespeare professors vying for the same tenure track position. I had a competition. I had people throwing curveballs left and right of, oh, you got to suddenly be at the office at 5 a.m. And some of that was coming, I think, because I wasn't considering that one of the reasons to read a rom-com is really the emotional journey. And also, on the flip side of that, I was really struggling with my ADHD. I was really having a tough time. I was very burnt out and I was very frustrated, and I wouldn't let myself acknowledge that I was burnt out because, again, I felt like I was set up succinctly for success. I thought, no, there's no reason why I should be burnt out. Well, I'm not even working right now. Usually I have so much more on my plate. What is going on? But what was happening in retrospect was because I did not have extreme demands on me, my body, I think, was finally able to let me know, hey, we don't have that in us again. We have met the end of that. There's no more dopamine, because I used to, and I still do, because I am very ambitious and I'm very driven. In my early 20s, I was mad. I can't explain to you how mad, like, not anger. I was insane. I was insane. But on paper, I was a machine. In graduate school, oh my God, I had so much to do, and I was still breastfeeding. I was in a marriage that was falling apart. It was a nightmare to come home to. And the days that were extra hard, where I would have to get up at 6 a.m. and feed my baby and make sure he had enough to eat and plan all of his meals for the day. And then I was in charge of taking him to the sitter and getting him all organized while I taught classes, and then went to classes, then taught some more classes, then picked up my baby, then went back and did rehearsal, then came home to have a discourse with my ex-husband, who was saying I, was a terrible mom because I was in graduate school. I was still getting dopamine from that because it was something to conquer. It was something to keep me engaged. Even though it was so bad. Oh my God. I was losing weight, bad. Nothing was fit. I looked ill at that time. But my brain, I felt neurotypical. I did. I was like, I am taking this in stride. I am. And I kept that up. I graduated and I kept that up. I had multiple jobs, blah, 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 blah. We get to 2025. I'm turning 29 and I have had a kid. I feel like I went through the second puberty that you go through like at age 25. And it could not happen anymore. I was not getting anything from anything at all. And I thought the book was going to fix everything. And so I just threw everything inside of it. Everything. Way too much. It's a rom-com. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? What is this? It had no focus. And then I scratched that draft. I ended up finishing it-ish. I got to the 75% mark. And then I thought, you know what's going to make this? You know what's going to fix this? Writing this in dual POV. I hate dual POV books. Okay? I love the authors who write them. Sure. I don't like them. I don't enjoy switching back and forth. I never, on the whole, enjoy the man's perspective because it's always so like, oh, her ass. And the girl's perspective is like, oh my gosh, he smells like coffee when he wakes up and book pages when he goes to sleep. And it's just not compelling to me. So I decide to do it. And guess what? I get to the 75% mark there and I'm like, I don't like this. It's not working. Okay, well, we're in September now and I wanted to have this submitted by July. I thought I was going to get this book written. It was going to be great. I was going to have some edits, of course. We were going to sell it and that was what it was going to be. And now we're in September and I'm in my third iteration of beginning from the beginning and I still don't know what's going on, okay? So I noodle on the story from September to October, and there's just something is not clicking for me. And internally, something's not clicking for me that I my brain doesn't have it in me. I should also mention that I was editing The Impossible Garden of Claire Thorne during this time. Like every time I would begin to draft this rom-com, I would get an editorial letter or a revision or something that I needed to do. And of course that took all of my time. And because I was the type of person, and still am, my mornings are just so much more efficient than my afternoons. But with unmedicated ADHD, that was sort of to the max, where if I didn't get writing done before 12, then I'm not getting writing done because I'm too overstimulated once the afternoon comes and I cannot access my creativity anymore. I just can't do it. I can perform in the evening, but that doesn't necessarily take a lot of creativity. To me, at this point, it's just like a skill that I have built that I get to live in, and somebody else has made the words for me. I just have to live in them. So insofar as words I create, it was done for. So I would do the editing, and if I had maybe an hour, great, I would write, but on the whole, I usually didn't. Then we get to November, and during this time also, the neighbor and I had broken up. It was very sad. We had to take some time apart because we were both just going through our own different things and careers and life, and getting to the point where it's like, all right, we've been together for 5 years. I want to stay in a small town. Do you want to try bigger cities, and et cetera, et cetera. And I started seeing somebody else during that time because, frankly, I don't have a vice. I don't drink. I don't do anything like that. I have too many food allergies to enjoy food. I don't necessarily hanging out with friends. I hate staying up late. I don't like going to parties. But what I can do is throw myself into another relationship and just let that happen for a little bit. Yeah, I know it's very Fleabag of me. You don't have to tell me about it. I know that's what I do. Oh my God. Chaos. You think I was chaotic in my business in my graduate school? Well, you should. When I was getting divorced and I was on the rec league soccer team, sugar, I was balls deep, all right? Not just soccer. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. So that was all happening. So the neighbor and I, we rekindle things, and it's in, December now, and I say to myself, that's it. I am working another job. I have another acting contract. There's no reason to not finish this book. So I do. I finish it. I work dawn till damn dusk. And I finish this finally after kind of 3 or 4 iterations of rewriting it, getting to the 75% mark and realizing this isn't it and restarting. I finish it. I send it to my agent. The moment I send it to my agent, I think to myself, I don't like it. I don't like it. I think that it's entertaining. I think that I can rely a lot on my authorial voice because the way that I phrase things and think things is inherently, for whatever reason, entertaining to people. And why people listen to me on podcasts and follow me on social media is because I guess I'm an IRL Lorelai Gilmore, even though I wasn't exposed to that person until I was 24 years old by the neighbor. Anyway, it was fine. And I had a beta reader on it who enjoyed it, but when my agent wanted to talk to me about it, I was like, I kind of hope she doesn't like this because I don't want, this is not the book. This isn't the book. This isn't it. This is not what I wanted. And we were on the same page because we always are. I think we were separated at birth or in some other thing. The wavelengths are so similar. And I was like, great. I have to write my other book for my what I'm contracted to do, which didn't have to be a sequel, turns out. I could just write another romantasy, so I did. So I wrote that book. And then I was like, all right, the beginning of this summer, I decided I want to sit down, I want to write this, I want to finish this, and I want this one to be good. I have spent so long with these characters. So I did it, and it was much better this go round. It really was. I was still struggling with the doing too many things to the point where it was watering it down. However, I did again get to the 75% mark, and I went to New York. And while I was in New York, I finally booked the psychiatry appointment that I've been meaning to book for 4 years. And I got back. I didn't write on that trip. I left, I was at like 75,000 words when I went to New York. Mind you, I felt like I was kind of 50% of the way through the novel because, again, I was overwriting, I was doing too much, I was still discovering, and also I was struggling mentally. I just was, and I was still trying to write. I was forcing myself to write, but nothing was feeling good, and I kept trying to do too many things because I was not able to see things clearly at that point. So I come back, I get medicated, and then this is day 18. So I would say almost exactly 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago to the day. What do you think I did? I went back to the beginning. I went back to the beginning. What are we, 5, 6 now? 5, 6? However, this felt and feels so much different because I am able to see my creativity clearly. And it has helped me streamline the plot. It has helped me understand these characters more. And also, I think one of the things that I'm trying to get at is that I know that every book that I write is going to be a different process. That book is going to teach me how to write it. And this book in particular, I think was a one, especially when I finish it, I even feel it right now as I'm in the middle of the redrafting, is one that humbled me and kind of flicked me on the forehead, a la, you should have had a V8, of no, just because you think that you know and you have, an unruly amount of knowledge about Shakespeare and academia actually doesn't mean that you know how to write this book. The book will still teach me how to write the book. This is the same thing with when I am rehearsing a show. How I rehearse Viola in Twelfth Night is not, I would never in a million years assume that that's how I'm going to rehearse Rosalind, because I have a different director. That's a different person. I'm working with different people. It's a different time of year. The concept is entirely different. And so that is a kind of a tenet of mine, I would say, in the creative process, is that every single creative process is going to teach you how to do it, no matter how small it is, no matter if it is an illustration, no matter if it is a podcast episode, any amount of creativity that you engage in. I think the act, whatever you are doing, it's always going to teach you how to do it. And I went into Impossible Garden of Clara Thorne knowing that this book has to teach me. I did not go in assuming I knew anything. I knew that I had the skills to be able to put this to paper, and I had the work ethic to get it done. And despite my ADHD, I will get it done kind of to a fault and with my hair falling out, which is probably the ADHD. Anyway, I didn't do that with this book. I didn't have that rawness of creativity that I usually come to things with. I had confidence, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I don't think you need to, I never want to arrive at a book and assume, oh, I am so dumb doing this, even though I often feel that way. Every time I look at a blank page or a new chapter, I think, why did I think that I was able to do this? However, this book had to teach me still how to write it. And while I had the knowledge to be able to support this concept, these characters still were going to teach me how to write them. And I am past the point of being frustrated with myself about it, because failure is a part of the process. And I think that if more people let themselves fail, we would have so many good books in the world. We would have so many less I'm an intrepid writer. I think we would have people who finished a book. We would have more people in the query trenches, because the fear of failure is it's such a looming specter, And the thing is, it's going to happen. There's nothing you can do to avoid it. And, you know, I could definitely view how many iterations of this draft I have gone through as like a complete and utter failure. But it's not, because I have spent time writing and rewriting, and I have become better as I have done so. I have. I can already tell if when I reread the dialogue exchanges in the first draft versus basically my sixth or seventh of this one now, my ability to be able to communicate friendship dynamics and the process of changing your mind about somebody, even though you believed something really, you took something at such face value and you had no reason to believe that. The slow picking apart of changing your mind, it's so much more nuanced in this iteration than it was had I finished this book when I wanted to last year. And, you know, when I do complete this book, this is always going to be the book that kind of smacked my ass into getting medicated, because it was the project that I should have finished, then I couldn't. And I couldn't make it good. And I couldn't make it good because I wasn't the thing that I needed, the access to who I am as a writer, was behind a paywall of anxieties, of extreme overstimulation, of needing constant, you know, dopamine in the form of keeping myself busy, even though that wasn't working anymore. So I was just throwing it into the plot. And now it's not that. Yeah, it's still going to be a first-ish draft. Like, this is yes, it's a second draft. There's going to be so many more improvements. I'm sure when I submit it to my agent, there's going to be things. I already have things that I want to tweak and such. But it is so much better because I let myself fail, because I got to the 75% mark and I pat myself on the back and said, all right, let's do it again. And I think that you do have to be careful, because in some respects, there's a point where you over edit your book, or you spend so long with it that you actually can't see it anymore. And I think that that's a person to person basis. You have to know yourself as a writer. Writing is a practice of self-awareness, and you need to be able to assess where you're at as a person and as a writer to know either I need to take 2 days away from this, or actually I had taken 2 days away from this and I know what I want to do and I'm going to come back to it. And I think that is the one thing that I do allow myself, is when I get to the point where I'm like, I don't know, I really don't know, I'll keep writing, and then I'll have a few days where I just don't as much, and I go on some walks and I think about the characters and I let scenes run through my brain. I listen to soundtracks, and usually at the end of that process, I will have had enough time of reflection to know, actually, let's keep going, or actually, I know how I want to redo this. And frankly, this one has been a little bit easier to redraft, and I mean, it is due in 12 days. So, you know, there's definitely a deadline with it. But the first draft I had in this iteration, when I started rewriting it in full this summer, is not wholly unusable. I definitely had sunk into what I wanted to sink into. I knew the story that I wanted to tell and the arc of the character. And so there was a lot that was totally usable. And there was some aspects that I was like, oh, we don't need that anymore. We do not need the cohort that they have to teach to be a doubles tennis team, and then they have to learn tennis. Yeah, that's what I was doing. I'm sure that's probably a totally compelling thing elsewhere, but there's already too many things going on. And I had to sacrifice my darlings, because I was like, well, if I want to do that, then then friendship dynamics are going to have to go to the side, because what do you want to focus on? What do you want to focus on, Summer? And I didn't know. And then I got medicated and I was like, oh, I know what I want to focus on. Great. Cool. That's awesome. And it's not writing the book for me. Beginning medication is not, suddenly making me sit down at my writing desk. I have worked really hard to make writing routines, and now I get to kind of, not rest on my laurels isn't the right thing to say, but it's, I get to settle in. I get to appreciate that version of myself who was so, determined and definitely ill, still made these structures that I know work, and they have always worked, and they definitely work now. I don't have to learn how to be efficient. I know how to be efficient despite, and now I can just be efficient and not, it's not as hard anymore. It's not like walking around with rocks in my backpack. And so that's a little, I guess, intel on drafting. And it's so hard to be in creative processes because they are so vulnerable and they are so you. And also, they're not. You are the conduit. You are the vehicle. What you create is its own entity. And writing a book, doing a show, raising a kid, like all of these pursuits that we have, growing a garden. I am able to be the impetus, and I can guide and oversee and step in to make necessary adjustments and edits where it is needed. It is its own thing. And the more life I put into it and the more life it receives from me, I have to be able to step back and be like, great, you are now your own entity and I am me, and I need to just get you to where you need to be, which I'm sure if somebody else explained creativity, they would explain it completely differently. For other people, it might feel like the back of their hand or something so close to them that it's their own appendage. For me, I know that something has had a level of success when I feel it separate from myself. When I feel, actually, this book is its own thing. It's like sculpting or playing with Play-Doh or whatever. All of a sudden, you kind of have this other sculpture, this other being, this other energy that you have created. I mean, it's very witchcraft to me, but I'm woo-woo. And failure is failure is a part of that, because you don't know how it's going to be. Every book is different. Every person is different. Every friend is different. Every pair of jeans is different. And so, I think, as always, I'm sharing the ways in which I have messed up. So hopefully if you also mess up the same way, you feel less alone, or you are somebody on your writing journey and you can hear like, ooh, let's not do that. Or, you're in it and you just know it's not abnormal. So this is kind of a longer episode. You can tell that I'm medicated. Can you? Can you tell I'm medicated? I don't know. I feel very much like myself. So I'm still talking real fast. You know what I mean? Still talking super fast. But I'm not inherently overstimulated by the end of filming a podcast episode. Usually podcast episodes, for whatever reason, would take it out of me. And I think it was just because I had so many thoughts going at the same time that I needed to synthesize in order to make it into a form that was at all listenable to. And now it's a little bit better. And I finish a podcast episode and I'm able to do other work. What is this? Oh, it's so much better to be medicated. It really is. It really is. I was so scared of it for so long. Anyway, I hope you all are having a cozy week, and let me know in the comments anything that you want to learn. Rate and review. It's helpful. And get ready, because in the next month or so, there will be a video aspect to this. That's right. Yeah, I took some time to learn my camera that I had 2 years ago that I was going to add a video aspect to a podcast too. Well, yeah, I got it, baby. And I had the patience to learn how to set it up. So get ready. It's going to be fireside chat situations wherein I'm definitely going to be knitting while talking to you. And you can either watch it or you can listen to me. So that's on that. Anyhow, stay cozy, stay bookish, stay chaotic, stay failing. Bye.